Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of American Gods. A great episode, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously we have that, the meeting, the neutral ground ended up being the center of America, which that was kind of an interesting story. It's like, oh yeah, the guy who owned property, because basically they ended up figuring out, oh, the middle of Kansas is on this dude Johnny's like property. But it's like he's not as happy about it as his neighbors were. They built like a monument like 2.5 miles, like half a mile away. They were bigging it up because it's like, oh my god, like so many tourists are going to come here, and no one came there because it turns out, as Ibis kind of states, whereas the House of Rocks is kind of a gathering of large amounts of spiritual energy, this place is a soulless void. So it's like both gods and humans avoid it. Whether humans realize it or not, why they avoid it, there is a reason for it, because it's kind of a dead zone. So it's like, your godliness goes there to die, in the sense that like you're just kind of like I said, it's a neutral zone. So, but even Shadow brings up later on, it's like, then why didn't Wednesday ever have his like peace talks here? Like, this is like the neutral zone. But Ibis talks about the fact is like, your dad was never someone to give up his power. Like, he never wanted to feel powerless. Plus, there was never always logic and reasoning to what he did. He would kind of seem very just like, I do what I want because I want to. Does it make the most sense? No, but I do it because I want to. You had the whole thing of, Cordelia hugging him and being like, oh my god, it sucks. That creepy dude in the hat, obviously referencing Mr. World. But to say that 5 foot so-and-so, and he was like, wait, Laura? Because it's like, oh, so Ibis knew. Well, to be fair, Ibis and Shadow were aware she was gunning for Wednesday, but it seems like Ibis knew ahead of time. And Shadow's like, wait, it was Laura and you didn't tell me? It's like one shock at a time. So, obviously, the new gods have rented out part of the place. Laura's there, kind of locked away, and Mr. World's keeping her there because it's like, oh, it's part of our deal. Like, obviously, we're trying to start up negotiations with the old gods. That way, you get safe passage because we made our deal. So, it's like, well, what about Doyle? It's like, yeah, his involvement. The only people that were involved in this deal were Salim and Shadow and yourself. So, his situation's it goes out of the purview of our deal, but it's like, hey, obviously, I'm going to orchestrate everything to make it seem like, hey, you did this purely out of revenge, making you like a sole perpetrator in this. That way, I can kind of come in and basically smooth things out to kind of get you taken care of and looked after. So it's like, yeah. But obviously, there's a discussion between Chernobog and Shadow about how the ritual should be held, about the vigil for Wednesday, because he's a Norse god. Obviously, they have to follow very specific Norse rituals, which one of them involves Shadow having to be bound to Yggdrasil for 9 days and 9 nights, very much like Odin. Because Chernobog was going to be the one to do it, but obviously, Shadow was like, no, that's kind of the deal me and the old man made, so it's kind of up to me as his son. Like, he kind of has more say in that. He also has say in when it comes down to the whole thing about Laura, her being the assassin and everything, because it's like, well, because obviously there's a difference of opinion. Like, Shadow's not too pissed at her, but he is, because obviously he feels conflicted about it, because it's like, Cordelia's like, yeah, he wasn't, he could kind of be a bastard, but he was actually a good boss. But then Shadow's like, yeah, but no matter how much he wanted to kind of make his motive seem like, oh, pure, and he had the best of intentions, like everything he did was out of his own self-interest. He never did anything if it didn't work out for him in the end. We'll get to that later on, but it's kind of that thing of, regardless of all that, it's still his dad. Growing up, always wanted to know that side of him, and now knowing his dad, like, despite their differences, it hits him. Because, I think this also affects him because, let's not forget, he lost his mom, he didn't have a long life with his mom. He had growing up with his mom, but he eventually lost her. And also, like, with this, it's like, his dad he only became aware of his dad being in his life recently, and to lose him like this, and also the person responsible being your wife. And obviously you have, Mr. World chewing up the scenery, like, oh, no, we had no involvement, blah, blah, blah. And it's almost like they call BS on it, but it's like, obviously Laura has enough motive on her own to kind of do this. So it's kind of a thing of, as the rituals of Norse mythology, rituals go, you as the son have the right to kill Laura. And it's like, all right. So when it was all said and done, like Laura gets brought to him, even though she was hiding out in a room listening to the whole thing, because I think for her, the moment she's listening in on it, she's like, shit, I got played, you know, which is so interesting because Laura's the one that's all about like everyone's out to get you. She was getting on Celine for being so naive, and she kind of got like her need for revenge. She kind of played right into Mr. World's hands because he's like throwing her to the wolves by being like, oh, this was her. We had nothing to do with it. You know, we want peace, blah, blah, blah. But when the time comes, Laura admits it. She's like, no, he was a part of this. Like, if I didn't have a God's help, how the hell did I get Gunyar out of, you know, Sweeney's horde? How did I know exactly when and where he'd be? So it's like, you bastard. Chernobyl trying to hammer him, but he can't. It's like, knowing where they are, they can't do anything. So you have Mr. World kind of gloating a little bit, being like, do whatever you want to, because either, you know, we keep this peace up, or the Shard program will be done before you can amass your army, and the old gods will vanish and fade, you know, until nothingness, you know, and to obscurity eventually. So it all kind of works out in that way. So I even love Chernobyl being like, oh yeah, there's a field like all across the road. You can do it this way and it'll be quick. Because he keeps referring to her as a cow, which obviously it's like, well, when Shadow and when we first met Chernobyl, there was the whole cow thing at the beginning of the series. But I guess that's how he just sees everyone that meets the end of his hammer. He just looks at them as like a cow. I mean, I'm sure it's also him talking very derogatory of Laura, just because it's like, yeah, you're the one that killed Votan. So I guess that's what kind of that's even more reason why. But I think it's also like he looks at anyone that he wants to kill as like literal, well, cows to the slaughter, because I was about to say sheep to the slaughter, but nevertheless. But it's like, yeah, this way will be a fast way, or this way be a slow way. I'd go for the neck because it'd be a slow way, because he wants her to suffer. But obviously Laura's kind of like, she's trying to say that what she did it for him. And he's like, well, don't. And she's like, all right, yes, I did it for me, but also for you too, because now you're free of Wednesday, because it's like, he had so much control over you, but it's just like, once again, like, Wednesday has always had his hooks in Shadow since the very beginning, and she's like, what has he ever done for you? And it's like, he gave me a purpose. To be a better leader than he was. Is like, leader, yeah, of change. Humanity's going down the slump, and he wants to be the one that can kind of make things change. And she's like, okay, now you're drinking the Wednesday Kool-Aid. And he was like, you can't just believe in me to kind of do this. You know, it's like, fine, you want to be miserable and lonely, have at it, you know, it bounces. And even Chernobog's like, wait, you're not going to kill her? And it's like, as Odin's last son, I get to make the decision, so let's get this vigil thing going forward, you know? So, obviously it's a whole process that, even at the end of the day, there was a part of Shadow that was reluctant about the whole thing. I skipped over it, but even he had this vision, like, obviously it was once again like all these people in the shadows kind of walking closer towards him, and he kind of gets a better picture of it, and they're just regular people. And then there's his dad in gold armor, like, extending his hand. We've seen this vision before, but this time Shadow takes his dad, following the path of like, all right, like, I'm gonna follow the path my dad kind of set forth for me, what I've got planned for my, like, all that. So, obviously, they're going through the rituals. The Norns are preparing, which I love the whole thing of, like, Cordelia being like, tell me there's not going to be a gimp involved. And you had Ibis being like, I'm not going to substantially kind of say, like, one way or another, because, like, this is my first vigil, so I don't know what's going to go down. But in a part way, Shadow is like, what should I do? Because even he's unclear. Like, even though he makes it seem like, oh, he's so sure. He made himself seem so sure in front of Chernobog, but he's not sure if this is the right thing to do. And they're like, do you want to back out? And he's like, no. So, but they're saying, like, the moment you start this process, there's no doing it over, because the fact is that you are a god can survive it, sure, but a human, it's sure death. So, and even Cordelia being like, you don't owe anything to that bastard, like, promises or not, like, we can do this, we can do that, like, because that's what another thing Laura was kind of saying, like, I gave you, like, your freedom to kind of do whatever you want to, you're kind of free of, which is interesting, because before it all went down, what did Wednesday say to Shadow? It was like, oh, you're free of all your obligations to me and stuff like that. But, obviously, Shadow wanted to kind of lead a normal life, but obviously with everything that went down in town, it's like, well, there is no normal life for him. It's kind of like this is the path set before him. Hell, even the crows, like, or ravens, the birds will just, and, Ibis is like, oh, they're following their master, and then Shadow was like, they're mine now, like, they're following me, like, the light kind of followed him at the end of the last episode, showing, like, oh, like, the mantle is now up to him to uphold. But obviously we see him, like, struggling through the 9 days and 9 nights. Obviously he's trying to, like, he's got Zariah's words of kind of looking up to the moon, to, the sky to be his guide. So on and so forth. It's kind of, even at one point he hears Laura's voice say, hey, you're dying. And then another point, he's getting so thirsty, he makes it snow, but then he can't stop it. And things just keep going worse and worse. And it seems like, okay, is Shadow going to make it? Is he not? Looks like he's at the edge until he ends up on a plane. Which I love Shadow being like, wait, don't tell me death is spending all that time with you on a plane. And it's like, he's like, no, we're somewhere in between. And then we get the hammer dropped. I was like, what? And Shadow figures it out at the end when all the teeth fall down and everything. It's Tyr, I think, representing Tyr and everything. And then it all finally clicks for Shadow that, like, this has all been a ploy. Like, he knew this was all happening. Like, every step this bastard has been making has been a lone con. Because for him, it was a situation of... Because this is where I'm throwing in it, because I think this is where conspiracy mode enters, to not really just be conspiracy mode, but full-blown truth is. I think at the end of the day, there's never been this old god versus new gods. The only side that's ever existed was Wednesday. Because Wednesday said at the beginning of the series that he's, a trickster, a charlatan, yada, yada, yada. He tricks people. Once again, there's the little video that plays like, oh, my husband, when he was pretending to be that old lady in the first episode of the season. Like, oh, yeah, like he was a con artist, he was this and that, a liar, and it's like everything that Odin is. Once again, what did Sweeney tell you? Like, don't get involved with him, kind of like you're making a deal with the literal devil. And so we see that kind of come full circle, because everything's been a manipulation, because he set Shadow in this path, because the great, like, oh my god, like, now, like, my son, he's willing to sacrifice himself for me. Now my son is a martyr. Now, like, I guess the whole point is now, like, it radicalizes everyone behind, like, not only is Odin dead, but also Shadow's dead. But I don't know whether it's just like, oh, because it seems like for him it's like, my son making a blood, like, sacrifice for me. There's basically it's no greater sacrifice, no greater tribute to me. So it's like, because once again, that's always been the foundation of, he needed Shadow to believe. That was kind of the big thing in season 1. Like, he needed Shadow to come to the truth and belief on his own. It's like, I need you to believe in me. But it's like everything he's done, every little step along the way has been a manipulation to get the Shadow to this point. He said, like, getting you to love me wasn't the easiest, but he was able to kind of manipulate the situation into making him like, oh, like, I was able to use your own ambition against you because you're like me, you're power hungry. But the only difference is I'm not ashamed of being power hungry. You feel some form of shame in it. So he used Shadow's deep-seated need and lust for power against him. It's like, okay, because with this, you'll be able to become a god and you'll be able to do whatever you want to. You'll be able to do some good. You'll be able to right some things that might be wrong in the world, and using that against him in that regard. It's like, once again, and Laura's voice comes over the intercom, what has he ever done for you? And it even goes back to what Shadow says, everything Wednesday's ever done has been out of self-interest. So, but the thing I'm wondering about is, like, is he going to pretend like, oh, I'm still dead and my son made a sacrifice to me, all the old guys rally behind me? Or, because obviously he's coming back because it's like, oh, your sacrifice is going to fully forge me again. The All-Father's going to be back bigger, badder than ever. I'm fully restored as the All-Father once again. So that's why I'm wondering, like, is he going to be like, oh, I'm back. My son, my beautiful, dear son, my only surviving son. Rest in peace, Shadow. He sacrificed himself for me so that we could fight this war, and rallies everyone together like that. So I'm curious which way he's going to lay. He's going to the forefront. Hey, I'm back. Let's do this. or wait for the shadows of everyone being like, I'm assuming he's going to rally things up because he got brought back and everything, and returning as the triumphant hero who his martyr son sacrificed himself for my sake, and he was able to bring me back. His belief in me was so strong, yada, yada, yada. The reason why I believe this is a con is because, not just on that side of things, but the entire side of things is because we had the technical boy literally killing all of Mr. World's people. Even saw that one dude had his head crushed up, popped open like a damn pumpkin. But he ends up finding the artifact. And the moment he touches it, I'm like, what the hell is that supposed to be? Because it's like artifact one. I'm like, oh, is it supposed to be like... Because obviously we see it at one point in time. It's like the first rocks like smashed together to create fire. So I was like, oh, like, is it supposed to be like something, an artifact that was literally there since the beginning? But then Mr. World shows up and kind of explains. It's like, actually, you, technical boy, are actually the most powerful of us all. And it actually kind of makes sense. It's actually interesting because we got a little insight into that story. Like, obviously, we saw kind of his like more humble beginnings to a certain extent with the whole. What was that that attraction he was making, but the magician kind of screwed him over and exposed him, that whole thing. So it's saying that basically the technical boy's power is from innovation. What makes him the most powerful god is because he is the literal manifestation of human innovation, from the first humans who slap rocks together to create fire to where they are, because humans are constantly on a technological climb and everything. So with every innovation in humanity and technology and everything, he grows that much stronger. So that's been innovation over millennia in actuality. So it puts it in a situation where it makes him the most powerful god, and it's like, oh, you're actually the most important thing. So it's like everything he's ever done to the technical boy, even like, you know, that moment kind of like, oh, putting him inside that thing, the head grabber, like, in season 2, and him popping up at the end of season 2 to now, like, everything has been for the purpose of innovating him, making him stronger, because the stronger he becomes, because he's the key factor to Shard. I think, in fact, he's everything to Shard. Like, everything is kind of built around him. He's kind of like the core, the foundation of it. And so I just thought that was kind of fascinating. It's like, oh, like, why you don't remember who you really are? Which I think that's so interesting that you have so many gods not remembering who they are. Because I think maybe that's kind of where they're going with the whole, Bilquis and him thing. Because Bilquis had kind of forgotten who she was. She was, basically, her image of who she was became a byproduct of what she saw herself the way people saw her, and that became, she lost her own identity through it. His is kind of similar, that basically without what Mr. World is calling his totem, I guess it's something kind of along the same veins. It's kind of like the totems from because when I hear the word totem, I immediately kind of think like, oh yeah, Inception type of totem. But it's kind of like, I guess, a representation of you as something that kind of keeps you grounded. It becomes like the manifestation, I guess, of all that you are. So his totem being, I guess, artifact 1, because that's kind of a representation of him, of how much he's innovated and grown with humanity's innovations. But it's like every time he evolves, he ends up forgetting who he is, his origins. So, and him being like, who are you? And, you know, it's like, oh, like, people think that this is the age of technology, and it's like, wrong. It's the age of manipulation. And he kind of refers to himself as like, I think he doesn't use the exact word trickster. He uses something like trickery or something like that. And immediately I'm like, wait, is Mr. World actually Loki? I'm like, is that who you're supposed to be? And then immediately with this whole Wednesday situation, I'm like, wait, are we saying that Wednesday and Mr. World, this could be some conspiracy theory stuff? I think this is going to be wrong, but my immediate thought was, are they actually the same person? And then I'm thinking, nah, but I think they're on the same side. Like I said, I think they orchestrated this great war between the new gods and old gods. Once again, that good old Kansas City shuffle. You're so busy looking over here on the left hand, you're not seeing all the magic that the right hand's doing. So, like, they orchestrated all this because they needed this big battle, this big war. Because at the end of the day, old god, new god, whatever the case may be, Odin was trying to be top dog again of everybody. I think he's trying to bitch slap everyone into submission of like, no, you're all mine. I am the All-Father. I'm the top dog. So maybe also getting rid of Tyr was also part of that plan too. It's like, oh, like get rid of anyone. I mean, hell, you could also make the argument all the death that Shadow's done in his name too. Well, because Shadow helped him kill Tyr, so I'm sure that plays some role. Let's not forget he also killed Sweeney in his death, in trying to protect him in season 2. So I'm like, even kind of, and once again going back to, hey, from the vision, he chose Odin over, like that's always been the thing. He's teetered between both worlds, the human world and that realm of the gods. Like he's always teetered on who he's supposed to be, his destiny and whatnot. So I think, once again, it's just like, it brings everything in perspective of like, everything since the beginning has always been a manipulation, because he said like, oh, that basically this was all set in motion even before it was always going to kind of come down to this. It was meant to come down to this. It was always planned to be this before Shadow was even born. Obviously, now I kind of understand a little bit more why his, like, once again, like, Eugenia, why she's trying to get Bilquis to find his other, because it's like, the reason why we separated Shadow from his dad is because we knew that his dad would suffocate that light that's inside of him. And that's the same thing his mom is like, yeah, like she saw that light in Shadow and she never wanted that corrupted by his actual dad, because she knew, I guess, just like Eugenia and the others did. But yeah, I like I said, my out there theory is that Mr. World and Odin are the same person, which, like I said, that's my out there theory. But I think most likely what it is that they're working together. Once again, Mr. World might actually be Loki for all we know. Especially, like, obviously with the whole, like, well, they did reference Loki recently. Well, at least Tyr did with the whole Fenrir situation. So Loki does exist. So I'm assuming he's Mr. World. He's been deep cover, because they even said this interesting thing about, he said this about the technical boy, like, you are the bridge from the old gods to the new gods, because I guess with him, who and being what he is, technically, I guess he borderlines between being an old god and a new god, especially every time he innovates and kind of comes back new. I guess he's technically a new god, but he's a very old god. You know, humanity's innovation and all that goes so far back. So, it's all part of a plan. Like, I'm sure, like, shards is also part of, it's also part of Odin's plan. We don't know in the grand scheme of things. Because what's interesting, though, is, like, Laura, obviously, she stayed at, that motel and ended up, which I know, I love that, freaking Chernobog and the receptionist lady hooked up, and she's like, yeah, he was asking for more towels. It's like, huh. The moment she took the cigarette from him, she had like, oh, we're about to bang it out. Like, she had those type of eyes, and it's like, yep, they banged it out hard. But the moment she went back to her room, at first she had she saw kind of like an illusion of Shadow kind of pinned against the wall with the gun through his chest, kind of, I guess, representing him being dead. Now, whether that was foreshadowing, like, maybe her playing right into Wednesday's hands and kind of inadvertently killing Shadow herself. I don't know whether that's what that's reading into, or that's just supposed to in general foreshadow his death. I don't know. Because sadly he does potentially die. We don't know if he's like fully dead, or is there a way to bring it back? We don't know. But all of a sudden, like, she dreams of Bilquis, and then lo and behold, who shows up? And Bilquis is like, "Oh, thank God I found you," because obviously she's supposed to find his other half, his soulmate, which I'm assuming is like, is it Laura? Because, like I said, the entire time I'm wondering if it was Cordelia or not, but it might actually be Laura. Maybe them kind of being like the opposites that they are, kind of potentially bad for each other. They're actually kind of right for each other. Maybe, maybe not. Because Bilquis had that vision, and it was a vision of like Shadow, Wednesday, Laura, Technical Boy, because they're all key pieces in whatever this is that's happening, what's going down. Because whatever it is, Chernobog didn't see it coming, Ibis didn't see it coming, and it's like, oh, because Chernobog at the end is like, oh, is this the end of the old gods? And then Ibis is like, no, the beginning of something much worse. That, like, Because this is, once again, this isn't an old god or a new god thing anymore. This is a Wednesday thing. That he got all that he wanted. He got the power. It makes you wonder, like, what's the whole Demeter thing? Was it Demeter was able to see him for what she... I mean, was that kind of another sacrifice in a way? Like, her just kind of, you know, was that him playing the long game? Or was that him at the last moment of, like, you know what? I'm going to put everything in motion. Screw it. Like, I wanted to hold on to some last little bit of love in my heart, but fuck it. I want the power. This is all I have. I have nothing else beside this. Maybe Demeter's situation sent him over the edge to finally push him to where he is now. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Like I said, a lot of this I could be reading too much into, but it's a lot of fascinating stuff, and I'm so curious to see where all of this takes us. Once again, is Laura the other person? Is it Cordelia? Like, what's going to happen with the shadow thing? Are they going to be able to bring him back? And if they... Because obviously even Wednesday said, like, oh, it's still out on the jury whether or not you're actually a god or not. How is this going to play out? Like, when Shadow comes back, is he going to be a full-blown god? Like, what's going to be the end result? Hell, is the end result going to be everyone coming together, new and old god? Because it's like, we have to join forces to stop Wednesday before he ends everything. Or before he starts a war that's going to end everything, because no one realizes that he's playing both sides of the fences. Because once again, the only side that's always existed and continues to exist is his. We're all just pawns in his game. So I am really, really interested to see where everything takes us going forward next episode. I've said it since the beginning. I believe next week's episode is the season finale. Like I said, I looked it up on IMDb, and I think it's 11 episodes. I didn't see a preview pop up for it, the next episode, but I do believe the next week's episode is the season finale. I could be wrong, but either way, I'm super excited to see where all of this ultimately ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.